He was supposed to be invisible, just another janitor, pushing a cart through a room full of millionaires. But one arrogant challenge would turn that night into something no one in the room would ever forget. Laughter echoed, fueled by prejudice, as a wealthy man mocked him in front of 40 powerful executives. They thought they were about to witness humiliation. Instead, what unfolded shattered their pride, exposed their biases, and changed the company's future forever. The question is, how did a man they dismissed as just a janitor bring an empire to its knees? Michael Carter's life didn't look like much to those around him. By day, he pushed a cart, emptied bins, and polished floors in the glittering offices of Sterling and Company. Financial consulting. He was the man most people barely noticed, the one executives walked past without a glance, the one who stayed behind after the parties to clean champagne glasses and sweep away confetti. To them, he was invisible. But beneath the quiet uniform of a janitor was a man carrying a story no one in that skyscraper could have imagined. That night, the 30th floor glowed with extravagance. Crystal chandeliers shimmered, a grand Steinway piano stood as a centerpiece, and 40 of the city's most powerful executives raised glasses of champagne in celebration of another profitable year. At the head of it all was Leonard Graves, the company's wealthy owner, who carried himself like a king holding court. To Leonard, image was everything, and mocking those beneath him was sport. Michael entered the hall with his cart, moving with the quiet humility of someone used to being overlooked. His hands, though calloused from cleaning, once carried a different kind of skill, a truth no one in that room knew. As he politely asked to tidy around the piano, Leonard's eyes lit up with an idea. It was the kind of moment when power and cruelty collide, when arrogance seeks a victim to make the crowd laugh. Michael had no idea yet how far the mockery would go. He only knew one thing. Every step he took that night was leading him toward the moment his entire hidden life would be forced into the light. The laughter started small, a ripple across the champagne-filled room, but soon it swelled into a roar. Leonard Graves, drunk on power and expensive wine, pointed at the janitor standing by the piano as if he were some evening entertainment. He raised his glass high, smirking. The words that followed cut through the air like a blade. If Michael could play Chopin, Leonard jeered, he could marry his daughter. And if not, maybe he should stick to what people like him were good at. The executives erupted in cruel delight, their expensive suits shaking with laughter. They didn't see Michael as a man, only a punchline. The mockery wasn't just about music. It was about race, class, and a system that thrived on keeping men like him in their place. In Leonard's eyes, a black janitor had no business touching a Steinway, no business being associated with refinement or genius. And yet Michael stood there, calm, his eyes steady, refusing to flinch. Leonard wasn't finished. His arrogance demanded a spectacle. He laid down a new challenge. Play Chopin flawlessly, or resign that very night. The room leaned in, hungry for humiliation. This wasn't about music anymore. It was about stripping a man of his dignity in front of 40 powerful witnesses. Michael agreed, but not without raising the stakes himself. If he played flawlessly, Leonard would donate $100,000 to a public school music program, his daughter's school, a place where children with dreams but no resources fought daily to keep their hope alive. The air thickened. Some executives smirked, certain they were seconds away from watching a man lose everything. Others shifted uncomfortably, sensing there was more to this janitor than met the eye. Still, Leonard smiled wider, convinced that nothing could shatter the walls of privilege he had built around himself. Michael sat at the piano. His fingers hovered over the keys, and to everyone's surprise, he began with the simplest tune. Mary Had a Little Lamb. The room howled with laughter. Glasses clinked. Sneers spread across faces. Leonard leaned back, satisfied that the game was his to win. But then Michael paused. He looked up, his voice calm but sharp. "Do you really believe talent has a color?" The laughter stopped. A silence, heavy and uncomfortable, filled the hall. For the first time, the power in the room shifted. Michael's question hung in the air like smoke. Impossible to ignore, impossible to laugh away. Leonard waved a hand, dismissive, insisting that competence, not color, mattered. But Michael knew the truth. Competence had always mattered, and yet prejudice had always decided the stage on which people were allowed to prove it. Before he played again, Michael made a phone call. A strange move, one that drew confused stares. Moments later, the line connected not to a friend, but to a professor at Juilliard. The confirmation came like thunder. Michael Carter wasn't just a janitor. He was a Juilliard graduate, a valedictorian, a man who had once commanded concert halls now mocked for polishing their floors. The executives froze. Leonard's smirk faltered. And as Michael lowered his hands back to the keys, everyone knew they were no longer about to witness humiliation. They were about to witness history. The room held its breath as Michael's fingers pressed down on the keys. This was no warm-up, no joke, no child's tune. The first notes of Chopin's Nocturne in E-flat major rose into the air, delicate yet commanding, carrying a weight that silenced every whisper and stilled every glass mid-air. What began as music quickly became something more. The melody filled the hall with a rawness that no one expected. Executives who minutes earlier had mocked him now felt the sting of shame burn through their laughter. Each note carried a story, of nights spent practicing when others slept, of sacrifices no one in that gilded room could understand, of resilience born from being underestimated at every turn. Leonard's smirk vanished. His face drained of color as he realized this was not entertainment. It was revelation. Every flourish of Michael's hands tore down the walls of arrogance, exposing Leonard's cruelty for what it was. The very piano meant to humiliate him had become his stage of triumph. Tears welled in the eyes of people who had once joined in the mockery. A silence so profound filled the hall that even the chandeliers seemed to stop shimmering. They weren't just listening to Chopin, they were listening to the unraveling of their prejudice. And then, as the final note lingered like a heartbeat refusing to fade, Michael stood. The silence collapsed into stunned disbelief. He looked around the room, not with anger, not with arrogance, but with the calm of a man who knew exactly who he was. He asked one question, his voice steady. "Do you believe this company deserves someone of my caliber?" No one spoke, not even Leonard. The man who had built an empire on power and pride now stood exposed, powerless in front of the very people he sought to impress. But Michael wasn't done. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a simple card. He handed it to Leonard, and with it came a truth that would shake the skyscraper to its very core. The card Leonard held in his trembling hand told a story he could no longer ignore. Michael Carter, former principal pianist, Chicago Symphony Orchestra, Wharton School graduate, majority shareholder, Sterling and Company. In that instant, the empire Leonard had built on arrogance and exclusion collapsed. The man he mocked as just a janitor was, in fact, the rightful power in the room. The fallout was swift. Leonard's reputation crumbled, his influence gone overnight. But for Michael, this was never just about revenge. He rebuilt Sterling into something his late wife would have been proud of. A company that valued merit over privilege, talent over prejudice, inclusion over mockery. Under his leadership, productivity soared. Scholarships were created for young musicians from underprivileged schools, and voices once silenced found a platform. And yet, beneath the triumph, there remained a deeper truth. Michael's story was not an isolated one. It was a reflection of what happens every day when brilliance is overlooked because of the color of someone's skin or the title on their uniform. How many gifted minds are ignored? How many doors are closed? Simply because the world refuses to look past prejudice. Isabel, Leonard's daughter, joined Michael's mission, determined to undo the harm her father had caused. For her, this was personal proof that silence in the face of injustice makes you complicit. For Michael, it was a purpose, transforming pain into change. And in his new office, Seated at the same Steinway piano that once symbolized humiliation, Michael played again. Not for mockery, not for applause, but for the generations who would come after him. Because true greatness isn't defined by wealth, skin color, or power. It's defined by resilience, dignity, and the courage to rise when the world tells you to bow. So the question remains, how many more hidden geniuses must be mocked before we finally learn to see people for who they are, not who we assume them to be? What do you think? Was Michael's greatest victory exposing Leonard, or rebuilding a future where talent has no color? Share your thoughts in the comments because your voice matters in conversations like this. And if this story moved you, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and join us for more stories that reveal the truth behind injustice.